Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone in today's class for the third intermediate grade. Our textbook is Super Goal 6 and today we will cover culture shock, form, meaning and function. This lesson will be presented by me, teacher Mazina Harbi, and the sign language by Mr. Saleh Al-Ajan. So let's begin. Our objectives in today's lesson, we hope that at the end of this lesson we will be able to learn how to use the past perfect. Before we do this, let's make a quick revision on our last lesson. Last lesson we had a writing lesson where we have presented different quotes from different intellectuals from different parts of the world. And each one of them talks about the importance of travel and the importance of moving from different places. As we have here from Marcus, he said that knowing the origin and history and the culture is an important, and also when you travel, that foreign country is not designed to make you comfortable, is to make its own people comfortable. So we have learned different, or we have read different quotes from different people about travel and about being exposed to different cultures and countries. And also we have learned in the writing corner how can we use used to plus gerund, and when can we use it? We said that we can use it with to be familiar with something usual. For example, when we said, I'm not used to eating with chopsticks. So used to here plus gerund, which is a noun that ends in ing, means that to talk about something that you're not familiar with. And also another example, when we said, I am used to getting up early. So I am used to getting up early. So we have learned that using used to plus gerund is to talk about something that you're already familiar with or you already have the knowledge of. And also used to plus gerund means to become familiar with something. So not that it's that you know something, but also you become familiar with it. For example, when we say, I'm getting used to some of the local customs. We said that we have other use for used to plus gerund, which is when you go to different place or a different country, and by time you're getting to know the people of that country or the people of this place, and you say, I am getting used to some of the local customs or of the traditions. And also we have learned about using used to plus infinitive that refers to an action that repeatedly happened. And in the past, of course, but it doesn't happen now. For example, when we said we used to walk to school, we didn't use to take the bus. So here we use used to and the infinitive to walk to talk about something that we usually or happened in the past, but not now. Also another example, I used to go to bed late at night, but now I go to bed early. So this is also another example on using used to plus the infinitive. The third example here we have learned, which is I used to read a lot, but now I don't have time. Not only this, but also we have a writing exercise where I ask you to imagine yourself that you're staying in a foreign country and you need to write an email to a friend about the cultural differences. Cultural differences in terms of language, in terms of how to greet, how to wear, and also in terms of food. So a lot of cultural differences. And before you write, you may want to research the local habits, customs, gestures, cuisine, and etc. And I have arranged some steps or some instructions on how to make such an email. I said that it's important that you start with a greeting. And you use the words that we used before, like, for example, Dear Ali, or Hi Ali, or Hello Ali. And after this, you start immediately with your main idea. I'm writing this email to you to show you or to talk about the differences or the cultural differences I found in that place. And also to close that writing, for example, by using words like see you soon, or write back to me, or I'm waiting for your reply. And also the signing, where you conclude that email with your name. So these are very important steps in order to write a complete email. So now let's start our lesson for today. Here I would like you to open your books on page 67. I would like you please to open your books on page 67. On page 67 we have, or we're going to talk about the past perfect. And what do you mean by past perfect? Hear me out. We use the past perfect usually, which is what we mean by past perfect, which is had plus the past participle to indicate an action that happened before another action in the past. And also, not only this, but we add to it some time expressions that are used with the past perfect. And one of these time expressions are after, already, before, by the time, ever, never, until. So we use the past perfect to talk about an action, all of them in the past. Two actions happened in the past, but one of them happened before the other. Not only this, but also we use with them the time expressions like after, already, before, by the time, ever, never, and until. Let's read a couple of examples. So here we have the first example here. By the time we got to the airport, our flight had already left. By the time we got to the airport, our flight had already left. So as you can see here we have two actions. The first action is we got to the airport, and the second one, this one, our flight had already left. So what do you think out of these two actions, what do you think the first action that happened first? Excellent, it is this one, our flight had already left. And since this is the first action that has happened, here we use the past perfect, which is had, as we have here in our rule, had plus the past participle or the third form of any verb. Let's read the second example. After she had gone to the hotel. After she had gone to the hotel, Amal exchanged some money. Amal exchanged some money. So here also we have two actions. What is the action that happened first in your opinion? Very good, which is this one, Amal, after she had gone to the hotel. And since this is the first action, here we use the past perfect, which is had plus the past participle or the third form of the verb. The third question or the third example we have, this is in a form of question. Had you ever eaten sushi before you traveled to Japan? Had you ever eaten sushi before you traveled to Japan? So here he's asking about action that happens before another action. The first action, which is eating sushi, and the other action, which is traveling to Japan. So this is why with the first action we use had plus the third form or the past participle. So this is how can we use the past perfect. So it's very simple. Just when we're talking about two actions happened in the past, we use them with the first action that has happened. Also, with further examples, no, I had never tasted sushi until I visited Japan. And the other one, he had had the car for 10 years before he sold it. So here are also this is also an example on how to use the past perfect. And of course, needless to say that this contraction of had is either we say he had, or I would had, or I had, or you had, or he had, or she had, we had, or they had. So this is with all the subject pronouns And how can we use these subject pronouns with the contraction of had? So as you can see here, this is all of the forms of the contractions with had. So as I said, imagine that there are two actions happened, and what you need to do is trying to use these actions and conclude them in one sentence. Like for example here, she wasn't hungry because she ate, and we're going to use here the adverbs of frequency. So the sentence will be, she wasn't hungry because she had already eaten. She had already eaten. So we use already or the adverbs of frequency after had or before the main verb in the past perfect sentence. Let's see the other example. So here we have the first action, which is he left the office and we arrived by the time. So here we need to write a complete sentence out of these two actions. So we can say he had left, we think of the first action that has happened, he had left the office by the time we arrived. So here we use this adverbs of frequency or the time expressions here before the main verb, which is arrived. And next, they saw a camel, they went to Egypt. And the adverbs of frequency that we're going to use is never and until. So the sentence will be, they had never seen a camel until they went to Egypt. They had never seen a camel. As we said, we use also the adverbs of frequency after had. They had never seen a camel until they went to Egypt. So this is how can we form a sentence with the past perfect using the adverbs of frequency like already, never, until, and by the time. Don't forget, and this is very important, don't forget to check on page 82 on your books. And what we're going to see on that page, a list of the past participle of the irregular verb. We know that some of the past participle have the same form of the past form of any verb. But of course, we have some irregular forms. So in order to make sure that you already read those irregular verbs, or just to have an idea about them, don't forget to check on page 82. Now, let's start to answering exercise A. Complete the sentences with the verbs in parentheses and use the simple past and the past perfect. So here we have two tenses that we're going to use, the simple past and the past perfect. And how can we tell what should we choose, either the simple past or the past perfect? It depends on what comes first. Let's give an example of the first one. They already start boarding the plane when I arrive at the gate. So here, how can we answer this? The first thing we need to consider is to discover what is the first action that has happened here. So the first action happened here is that they had already started boarding the plane. This is the first action, and this is, since it's the first action, this is why we use the past perfect tense. And when I arrived at the gate, when I arrived at the gate, this is the second action, and this is why we use with the second action the simple past. So this is how can we differentiate or to know when can we use the simple past or the past perfect. Number two, Sabah not know how to use the chopsticks because she never eats in a Chinese restaurant before. So we start with Sabah didn't know how to use the chopsticks because she had never eaten in a Chinese restaurant before. So this is the first action. She had never before, so this is why she didn't know. Number three, we not manage get a hotel room because we not make a reservation in advance. So out of these two actions, there is one action that comes first. What do you think that action is? Very good. Yes, it is the second one. So this is why we can say we didn't manage to get a hotel room because we had not made a reservation in advance. So this is why we hadn't made the reservation in advance. This is the first thing that happened before we didn't manage to get a hotel or a room in that hotel. Now let's continue. Number 4. I never, in between parentheses, never be abroad until I traveled to Paris last summer. So here we would say, I had never been abroad until I traveled to Paris last summer. So here again, this action happened before that action. And number 5. Had you learned to speak French before you went to Paris? Had you learned to speak French before you went to Paris? This is also, when can we use the past perfect? Number 6, the waiter was upset. Why was he upset? What happened before he's getting upset? Because his customers had not or hadn't left him a tip. Hadn't left him a tip, because this is the first thing that happens, and then what comes after it is that he became angry. And number 7, by the time Faris finished his studies, he had lived in London for 5 years. He had lived in London for 5 years. So this is how can we differentiate between using the simple present or the simple past and the past perfect. Remember, just decide when is the first action that happened, and then you can choose. Let's continue. Number 8, after he had adjusted to British culture, Faris felt quite comfortable living in London. After he had adjusted, this is the first one, Faris felt quite comfortable living in London. Number 9, he had become so familiar with the British customs that he experienced reverse culture shock when he returned home. And number 10, everyone had taken off their shoes before they entered the mosque. Everyone had taken off their shoes before they entered the mosque. So now, let's move on to continue exercise B. And here in this exercise, I want you to complete the text with the correct past tense of the verbs that we can see in parentheses. So let's begin with the first one. The first one says, always want to visit China, and last year. Let's continue with the first one. The first one says, I had always wanted to visit China, and last year my dream came true. My dream came true. Before I, and the verb here is leave home, we can say before I left home, I planned my trip carefully. I had planned my vacation or my trip carefully. And I had gotten maps and lots of expert advice from my travel agent. Let's continue. Number 6. I had studied the Chinese customs, and I had even taken a course to learn some basic Chinese. I spent 1 month in China traveling to different regions of the country, and I saw amazing sights like the Great Wall, which was more spectacular than I had ever imagined. And next, the scenery was so incredible that I took over 300 pictures in one day. So this is how can we use or change the form of each of these verbs from the present tense until the past tense. So these are the answers of question number B. And now we have reached the end of our lesson. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.